Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my week number 11 running back start or sit decisions for the 2024 fantasy football season. Going in depth through every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way up until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the running backs in all of those games. But before we can get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do not have enjoyed today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help you out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. It is also important to note that there are 4 teams on bye this week: the Arizona Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers, the New York Football Giants, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 11 running back start or sit decisions for the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with Thursday Night Football. The left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Brian Robinson is expected to return to practice today on Tuesday. B-Rob has missed back-to-back games, and the hope is that he ends up being able to play this week. Since the game is on Thursday, though, I'm not going to hold my breath and pretend that it is a mortal lock that Brian Robinson does end up playing. When he plays, though, you are going to want to play him as a reliable top 24 back. If he doesn't end up being good to go, then Eckler will slot into a similar range in my rankings, if not a higher range, as without Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler has been a top 13 running back now in back-to-back weeks. Now, if Brian Robinson is able to come back in deep leagues, if you have to play Austin Eckler, right? Or if you're dealing with a bunch of running backs on bye, right? Maybe you have James Conner from the Cardinals, Chuba Hubbard from the Panthers, Tracy from the Giants, or Rashad White or Bucky Irving from the Buccaneers, all 4 teams on bye, then sure, if you have to play Eckler, I'm not going to argue too much with you. But ultimately, when Brian Robinson is healthy, he's a guy that gets a handful of carries per week, who relies on taking one of his targets for a deep reception to have a top 28-ish game, which to me doesn't indicate a guy that you really want to be starting with Brian Robinson healthy. For Saquon Barkley, I know it's a shock, but you're going to want to start Saquon Barkley. He's a must-start running back. I understand that last week, up against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World, in a wet dream matchup, he disappointed. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That matchup was amazing, finger licking good, and Saquon Barkley disappointed. But if you want to argue that Saquon Barkley isn't going to bounce back, you can just argue with the wall. Jalen Hurts getting so many rushing touchdowns does have me ready to hang from the ceiling like a chandelier, but ultimately Saquon Barkley needs to be in your lineup as a clear top 6 running back. Kenneth Gainwell really doesn't get much run unless the Eagles are destroying their opponent late in games. Gainwell is a fine player, but with like 6 to 8 touches per game, and a lot of times getting less than that, I have no interest in starting him. This week, luckily, we don't have to wake up at 9 a.m. to watch a disaster class of the Panthers versus the Giants or any of these random games they put in other countries. We start at 1 p.m. with the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. Now, we still get a disasterful team in the Chicago Bears playing, but at least you don't have to wake up at the ass crack of dawn to watch it. Now, I am incredibly interested when it comes to the Packers offense and the team as a whole to see if they can bounce back coming out the bye, as they really didn't look all that good up against the Lions in their last game. Now, Josh Jacobs looked better than Kobe in 05, even if the fantasy finish didn't say so up against the Lions. Running back 22, but he had 13 carries for 95 yards and 2 receptions on 3 targets for 13 yards. Facing off up against a Bears team that is disheveled, to say the least, Jacobs should be able to bounce back as a fringe top 12 running back. Emmanuel Wilson has looked good in spurts when the touches have come his way, but he is another one of these guys that would be lucky to get 8 touches, so he's a clear sit. For the Bears, with how the offense has looked coming out of the bye, I don't think we should really be throwing too much trust onto DeAndre Swift anymore. Heads needed to roll, and ultimately they actually did. They fired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron and promoted Thomas Brown. Now, is this going to completely change things? Maybe not, right? Maybe it was a little too late, but at least the team didn't stick with this dumb bastard Shane Waldron any longer, and you can hope that this shoots some energy into the offense, hits the offense with the defibrillator, right? Now, based on DeAndre Swift's strong decline as of recently, I can't get myself to rank him as a top 12 running back, but I do believe that a top 18 finish is possible. Hopefully the offensive coordinator change really does make this offense produce a lot better. Roschon Johnson, even with Khalil Herbert in Cincy eating Skyline chili with Joe Burrow and friends, Roschon saw just 3 touches last week, which feels like a similar amount to what he's going to end up getting on Sunday, so he is a sit. Next up, we move to the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Detroit Lions. Now, when it comes to Jahmyr Gibbs, I am sure if you drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, you are kind of feeling like this season has been underwhelming for him, as he isn't really a lock to finish inside the top 12 weekly, and based upon him being a consensus top 6 running back across industry-wide rankings, obviously, when you're not like a lock to be a top 12 guy weekly, you are pretty disappointed. But he is a very reliable top 18 running back in all games outside of one, and he has the upside to chop a defense's head off like its name was Ned Stark and finish as a top 3, even the running back number 1. Last week was definitely a doozy up against the Texans in Houston, but that was mainly because Jared Goff decided to play like he was Tampa Bay famous Jameis Winston. Against the Jaguars, I expect an Eiffel Tower effort from Jahmyr Gibbs, Sonic, and Montgomery Knuckles for both to perform quite well. I got Jahmyr Gibbs as a low-end running back 1 on the week. Now, Montgomery, to me, is a legitimate lock to finish inside the top 24 at the running back position every single week. He has done it in every single week outside of one. And in that one down performance was the game he got hurt in Minnesota. The guy lives in the end zone. He has a fucking 4-story property inside of the end zone, and being a reliable top 24 running back is just in his DNA. He did it even last week when Mr. Jared Goff was throwing the ball directly to the fucking defense 5 times, right? So I got Montgomery as a low-end running back 2 this week, which is just kind of where he's always going to be ranked. So I feel pretty confident in that. Now, for the Jaguars, I would rather get a toothy blowjob from a vampire over playing Travis Etienne in the year 2024. Not only does the Lions defense allow the 6th lowest amount of points to the running back position on a per game basis, Travis Etienne, even playing 68% of the snaps, is on an offense that cannot move the ball. Considering that Trevor Lawrence should miss again with a significant AC joint sprain, I would rather see Mac Jones and Travis Etienne have this fucking beautiful chef's kiss Magnifique masterclass on my bench over actual playing him. And Tank Bigsby, even though Bigsby is clearly better than Etienne, Bigsby has been banished to the bench with just 2 touches last week, playing 23% of the snaps. Now with Mac Jones under center, I wouldn't touch Tank Bigsby with a 10-foot hole. Next up, we move to the cold like Minnesota Vikings at the Tennessee Titans. Now, Aaron Jones exited last week's game with a rib injury, which sucked, but he is expected to be good to go this week, bearing any setbacks, so that's at least positive. Playing Aaron Jones recently has kind of just felt like taking a lock in the sock to the back of your head. Aaron Jones feels like a pretty safe bet, even though with him not playing as well recently, I do believe that up against the Titans, who aren't necessarily the best against the run, he should be able to be a low-end top 24 back in the running back 20 to 24 range. And the upside is obviously there if the Minnesota Vikings offense can figure things out, because as of recently, this Vikings offense has been a fucking best, mainly because Sam Darnold is another one of these guys that's just trying to play like Jameis Winston. Now, Cam Akers saw more touches than normal for a Vikings running back 2 this season due to the Aaron Jones injury last week, but assuming Jones is able to go, Akers belongs on the pine. For Tony Pollard, he had a far from ideal performance last week in LA against the Chargers. With Tajay Spears returning, they really ended up toning back the amount of workload that Pollard received. He had just 9 carries for 44 yards and 4 receptions on 4 targets, 4 for 4, like he was at Wendy's. Junior Bacon Cheeseburger for 19 yards in a game that the Titans got a train ran on them by the Chargers offense. If the Vikings continue to suck ass, though, this game could end up being close. and that would help Pollard. But as of right now, he's kind of just in that low-end RB2 range. I would have him, if I had both Aaron Jones and Tony Pollard and needed to start one, I would lean with Aaron Jones. Now, Tajay Spears played 46% of the snaps and got 7 carries for 47 yards and 3 receptions for 4 yards. Since the coaching staff has made it abundantly clear that Tony Pollard will have his workload cut by Spears, it really does hurt Tony Pollard bad, but still doesn't give Spears enough value to end up playing him, unless, of course, that injury from last week ends up more serious and Tony Pollard ends up missing. In that case, you would play Spears. Next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at the Miami Dolphins. Now, Achane had his worst game since Tua returned as the running back 24 last week up against the Rams in LA on Monday Night Football. 12 carries for 37 yards and 5 receptions on 5 targets for 14 yards. Prior to last week, every other game with Tua Tagovailoa, Achane has been a top 3 running back. And I know, Nick, it's not the craziest sample size. Sure, it's 4 games. But how many running backs have been a top 3 running back in 4 fucking games this season? Not a lot of them. I won't panic after one bad performance for Achane, and I do expect him to get shoved down the throat of that Raiders putrid defense. I am very confident that the Dolphins put belt to ass here and run the ball a ton. Achane is a must-start top 6 running back at the running back position. For Raheem Mostert, Raheem the Dream ended up being Raheem the Nightmare last week with 0 carries and 2 receptions on 3 targets for 34 yards. Now, he made a clutch play on 3rd down, which was very nice as a Dolphins fan, but the touches didn't go his way, right? He's normally an 8 to 10 carries per game type of guy who may catch a pass or 2. This was the first week the Dolphins really phased him out of the rushing attack, which led to Jalen Wright getting 5 carries. Now, I don't think it's fully Jover. It's not completely over for Mostert just yet as a chance handcuff, but in no world, based upon what we saw last week, would you actually want to play him. Before we talk about the Raiders and the rest of the matchups on the week at the running back position, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, you'll be able to claim your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. The free pick for tonight on Tuesday is going to be LeBron James, higher than half of a total point. You match that with any other player playing in the NBA or in the NFL. If both of your picks hit, you'll get 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you do multiple other picks, they all have to hit, obviously, but the payout will be higher. If you're watching this on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then the free pick might be different. It will either be an NBA player higher than half a total point or an NFL player higher than half a total yard. Again, you get your free pick with promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So make sure you guys check that out. Link in the video description. So for the Raiders, Alexander Mattison is going to be a start. Alexander Mattison, to me, is like when you're stuck in the desert and you find some sparkling water, right? You probably wanted real water, because who the fuck likes sparkling water? I certainly don't, but it will help you to survive. Mattison is a okay running back 3. The Raiders offense reeks to high heaven, but the Dolphins defense is notoriously bad against the run. I know they actually looked good up against the run and Kyren last night, but normally that is just not the case. Mattison should get fed, and with 5+ target upside, he could easily finish inside the top 20 or even flirt with a top 18 finish. Now, I can't sit here and fully bang the drum for him because I don't believe he's that great of a running back, but, and this is a big but, shout out to Angelina Jolie, if he gets his normal allotment of touches, he should be a fine desperation play at running back 3. Again, the fact that there's multiple teams on bye does give him a boost. Zamir White has seen 14% or fewer of the snaps ever since he returned from injury over the last 3 games prior to the bye week last week. It is very clear that the offense wants him to walk the fucking plank, and any possibility of him getting a serviceable amount of volume is dead in the water, so leave him on the waivers. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Rams at the New England Patriots, a Super Bowl rematch from like a long time ago at this point. Kyren Williams and the Rams. Now, I just alluded to this. Kyren has now shit his pants like the Lions player on Sunday Night Football in back-to-back back-to-back games. 3 straight without a touchdown and 2 finishes in a row outside the top 20, which is very out of the ordinary for Kyren Williams. For some reason, the Dolphins defense locked in and actually showed up for the first time in what felt like a decade, which was cool as a Dolphins fan, but awful for Kyren Williams owners. Patriots are one of the worst 10 defenses against the run in terms of points per game allowed to the running back position, so this should be a spot for Kyren to shine bright like a diamond. I have him bouncing back as a top 10 running back. This man, Blake Corum, is basically as useful as Doc Rivers, so you're going to sit him. If he got 4 touches this week, I would be genuinely shocked. Ramondre Stevenson for him, I have maintained this stance for what feels like the whole entire season. Ramondre is an incredibly boom or bust running back. He is either on top of the world as a top 12 running back, flirting with top 5 finishes, or he's falling outside the top 28, and there is no in between. Last week, he was the running back 28. Ultimately, though, when your upside is as high as Mr. Ramondre Stevenson, he's going to rank inside the top 24 as a low-end running back, too. This matchup could end up being a very high-scoring game, knowing with how these defenses can be. And even if it's not, I think the Patriots can keep it close enough to give Ramondre a ton of run here. For Antonio Gibson, he's another one of these guys. Like, you would be lucky, 777s, to get more than 5 touches based on his recent workload, and you aren't playing a running back that can't even see 5 touches, so you're sitting him. Next up, we got game number 7, the Cleveland Browns at the New Orleans Saints. Now, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb is nothing but a dart throw start this week. His usage has been very, 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 very dicey since returning, and while I do expect an uptick coming out of the bye week, this famous Jameis-led Browns offense is better, but it's far from a guarantee that Chubb gets his efficiency back, that Chubb gets his swagger back. Since returning, he has had 2 yards per carry, 3.3 yards per carry, and 2.6 yards per carry. Until he becomes more efficient, he's a guy that I would prefer to sit. But again, when multiple teams are on bye, I kind of just have to list them as a start. The Saints defense has been getting mauled by the run weekly, so hopefully this is that breakout game for Chubb where we get the normal Nick Chubb that we're used to. But again, if your back is up against the wall, you can play him. Ultimately, is outside the top 24 running backs and is a YOLO start at best. Jerome Ford, F-150, played returning from injury in week 9 prior to the bye. And coming out of the bye week, I do think he could get a couple more touches. Maybe like 4. But Chubb's the guy, so you don't want to be starting Mr. Jerome Ford. For the New Orleans Saints, with the Saints offense having MVS as their wide receiver 1, saying that they are low on skilled playmakers is a fucking understatement, right? This team has to utilize Kamara heavily, both running the rock and catching the ball, even heavier than they normally do, which gives him a huge boost for fantasy. Anytime a running back can see 6 or more targets, they are going to have a very safe floor with huge upside. I got Kamara as a top 8 back. Now, without Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller, Mims has stepped up as the running back too, but he hasn't actually stepped up because they feed Kamara like a fat kid on Thanksgiving. Get the turducken, the stuffing, the fucking cranberry sauce, some apple pie, some pumpkin pie. Everything is on the plate of Alvin Kamara, and that leaves Jordan Mims just picking up the scraps. Next up, we move to the Indianapolis Colts at the New York Jumbo Jets. This was actually supposed to be a primetime game, I believe Sunday Night Football, but the NFL said, fuck no, baby. We're not getting Joe Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers in prime time. So now they're playing at 1 o'clock. Now, I said this last week about Jonathan Taylor, and I very vehemently believe this. JT would be better off with Anthony Richardson under center. But Shane Steichen, the fucking head coach of the team, is going to die on the shield. keeping old man Flacco as the QB1, which could end up being his Achilles heel, and he might end up getting, you're fired, right? He might get fired. Jonathan Taylor ran for over 100 yards last week and had 2 catches for 8 yards. We just watched the Jets defense get skinned alive as this game doesn't end up being a blowout by the Jets, which I don't think it will be. Jonathan Taylor could scratch and claw his way into being a fringe running back 1 in the running back 10 through 12 range. Trey Sermon last week, Goodson was the running back 2 on the Colts, and he actually even ended up scoring a touchdown, but Sermon could easily leapfrog past him as he usually is the running back 2, so neither of these guys are going to be around 20+% or more of the snaps. So there's really no need to play any of them with Jonathan Taylor healthy. For Breece Hall, he has been the polar opposite of Bijan Robinson. Breece Hall started off the season hotter than Alexa Demi, right? But then it's been an ice age like fucking the squirrel. What's his name? Forgot what his name is. Squirrel, Willie Mammoth. You know what I'm talking about. The Ice Age movie, right? He's been ice cold, right? Over the last 3 games. Last week, he was just, 12 fantasy points. Matchup here is advantageous for Hall, but I'm kind of nervous that the Jets might have just quit. Thrown in the towel. Ultimately, he's a low-end running back 1 this week. And you're hoping that the Jets have mild success and Hall will be fine. So you're still going to start him as a low-end running back 1, but again, I'm not going to sit here and fucking give the guy the Sukalamink special any longer. Braylon Allen, even with Breece clearly being the guy, some games Allen will just get 10 touches or even more for no reason, and there's going to be drives that are just dedicated to Braylon Allen. Last week was one of those games. He saw 8 total touches. Ultimately, though, with his touches ranging so drastically from a week-in, week-out standpoint, you gotta sit him. Next up, we got game number 9, the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Mike Tomlin legitimately took one of the most crazy shots at Deontay Johnson I've ever heard. A reporter asked him basically like, oh, what do you think about Deontay Johnson coming back to Pittsburgh? He's like, we've got other shit to worry about. Not Deontay Johnson. They've got way better players than him. And it was just funny as fuck. It's like, what? That was so mean for no reason. But again, who really gives a shit if someone's mean in the NFL? I just thought it was kind of funny. Like it was like a dagger shot onto him. Now, for the Ravens, Derrick Henry has played in every single game of the season. So 10 games for the Ravens. They have not had a bye week yet. He has had a 60% hit rate inside the top 10, which quick math, 6 out of 10 games. And 2 of his quote-unquote down games, he was inside the top 18. Now, not only were his ass cheeks out on Thursday Night Football against the Bengals, his production was ass cheeks compared to what we are used to for Derrick Henry. Now, when I say ass cheeks production, for other running backs, this is a red panty night, right? 14 fantasy points. It's amazing. Beautiful. You're writing home about that. But for Henry, 14 points, you're not writing home about that. That's nothing special for Mr. King Henry, but I'm not quitting on him. Even with the Steelers defense being above average against the run, you got to rock with Tractor Cito as a top 6 running back weekly. Now for Justice Hill, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, and Justice Hill will find his way into being a top 24 running back every once in a while. Over the last 3 weeks, that hasn't happened, and his usage has been incredibly low this year, so he's best left on your bench. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee got banged up last week up against the Commanders with an ankle injury. It doesn't appear to be severe as he returned shortly after, so I'm not going to panic, but it is something to monitor. Najee averaged just 2.5 yards per carry last week, which is his lowest in a long time, as he has been on fire from week 6 through 8 prior to the bye week. If the ankle is going to impact his play, I don't want to get too high and mighty on Najee, especially since Warren continues to get ramped up, but Najee feels like a safe, middle-of-the-road running back, too. A low-end running back, too, sitting around the running back 18 to 20-ish range. For Jaylen Warren, he was the better running back of the 2 last week with 14 carries for 66 yards and going 2 of 2 in the receiving game for 29 yards. Despite the fact that he fumbled, which didn't look good at all, unless Najee misses time, though, the team's going to lean on Najee, so you want to sit him. Now we move to the 4 p.m. slate. Again, another week with just 3 games at 4 o'clock. They need to fix that. They need to fix that, but they never will because, fuck us, right? Atlanta Falcons at Denver Broncos, 4 p.m. Sunday. Early on in the season, the haters were loud about Bijan. They were saying, Bijan ain't this. They're saying, Bijan ain't that. They're saying, Bijan ain't no hitter, right? They're saying, Bijan ain't a hitter. They're saying, Bijan a fake. And then Bijan hit those motherfuckers with an RKO like his name was Randy Orton. 5 straight games inside the top 9. And last week in New Orleans, he was the running back 1, scoring damn near 30 fantasy points. With this offense looking more beautiful than Sloan in Entourage, I am expecting another top 10 finish. The Broncos defense is pretty good, but they're actually kind of mid against the run in terms of points per game. So Bijan should be a locked and loaded top 5 running back for me. Now, Tyler Algier is one of the best, if not the best, handcuffs in fantasy football. Based on his career, what we have seen this season, he is typically efficient on the touches that he gets. But you are praying for a touchdown. That he vultures from Bijan, so he belongs on the bench. Now, for the Broncos, Sean Payton was sucking Audric Estime dry all week. He hit him with the Hawk to special. And he wasn't lying. He wasn't fibbing. He gave him more touches. Estime was the leader in the clubhouse in terms of snaps. He had 45% of the snaps. Javonte Williams had 29%. And Jaleel McLaughlin got the scraps with 12%. As of right now, Estime looked solid. 14 carries for 53 yards. The team could lean on him being the lead back again. But we don't have enough clarity to truly be ecstatic about Estime. Now, I would pick him up off waivers. We talked about him in the waiver wire ad video. Because if the Broncos offense keeps being productive, he could end up being a league winner. Could, right? Not a guarantee. But as of right now, he and Javonte are just both sits, right? We don't know. Things could go back to their old ways this week. Next up, we got the Seahawks at the 49ers. Kenneth Walker has been colder than North Yankton over the last 2 games. He has not been able to find the end zone. He looked good prior to the bye against the Rams as the running back 20, but in terms of being that top 12 guy that we've gotten used to with Walker, he has been far from that. Now, coming out the bye, I expect Walker to be fine. Again, he might not be great again, but he might be fine again as a low-end running back 2 to high-end running back, or a low-end running back 1 to high-end running back 2. You are obviously going to play him unless you have like 3 running back 1s on your team. For Zach Charbonnet, with Walker healthy, you'd be lucky for Charbonnet to get 6 touches, so you're sitting him. For Christian McCaffrey, in his return game, it was exactly what I expected. A ton of work, but he looked a little bit off as he missed a bunch of times, which is exactly what I said would happen. He had 13 carries for 39 yards in Tampa, 6 receptions on 7 targets for 68 yards as a top 12 running back. Knowing who McCaffrey is, he should be able to get the monkey off his back shortly, and I have him ranked as a top 5 back. Anytime you play the Seahawks run defense, it is a barbecue chicken alert. For the 49ers, even coming off the injury, Christian McCaffrey played 88% of the snaps, leaving Jordan Mason to get just 5%. Kyle Shanahan will be a workhorse running back guy until the day he takes his big dirt nap. You can't play running back 2s in this offense, regardless of how good Mason is. So Jordan Mason, the numbers Mason, will end up being a sit because Kyle Shanahan wants the workhorse running back. He doesn't give a shit if McCaffrey's coming off injury. He doesn't give a shit that he has multiple good running backs on this team. He wants a workhorse running back, and we're just going to have to follow that. We're just going to have to acknowledge it. Shout out Roman Reigns. Kareem Hunt and the Chiefs going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Very interesting game because it seems like the Bills kind of have the Chiefs number in the regular season, and in the postseason, the Kansas City Chiefs own the Buffalo Bills. Very interesting. So the Chiefs have designated Isaiah Pacheco to return from the IR to practice. We talk about practice. Now, returning to practice far from guarantees that Pacheco actually suits up and plays. But this is something to monitor. If Pacheco plays, you're going to play him, even if he is limited, because the Bills' defense gets plowed by the run like their name was Savannah Bond by running backs all year long. If Hunt is the starter, he has finished inside the top 12 running backs in back-to-back games. And last week, he had 7 receptions on 10 targets for 65 yards. Again, against the Bills defense. I am feeling real nicey about Kareem Hunt if he gets the start. Now, the Chiefs will be utilizing multiple running back twos in this game, with Hunt included if Pacheco plays. But if Pacheco isn't playing, which is how I'm just spitting things out right now, Steele and P. Ryan will be the running back 2A and 2B. Samaje feels like the 2A, but with so few touches, no one needs to risk starting them even on the Chiefs offense. Now, James Cook will be facing the toughest task a running back can face. Chiefs defense, who allows the fewest amount of points per game to the running back position. This leads Cook to free falling down my rankings. Last week, he looked good against Indy in Indianapolis. When you're playing the Chiefs, there's really not a great argument to be made to rank him inside the top 12. He's a mid-range to high-end running back 2 for me, and I hope the volume can make up for the potentially bad efficiency up against their defensive front. For Ray Davis, he is another one of these guys that to me is like an elite-ish handcuff, right? But unless you believe that the Chiefs are going to get hit by the Bills with the power of Brock Lesnar and lead the game by 14 or more in the fourth quarter, Ray Davis's touches will be minimized to the point where he is unstartable. Now we move to, cause you waited all day for Sunday night, the Cincinnati Bengals at the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, back-to-back games for Chase Brown inside the top 5 at the running back position, and without Zach Moss for this foreseeable future, Brown will continue to eat. 13 for 42 last week with a touchdown and 9 receptions on 11 targets for 52 yards. While it is basically fucking impossible for him to get 11 targets again, finishing inside the top 12 is definitely possible. Now, with looking at this game from a logistical, logical standpoint, the Chargers are top 3 against the running back position in terms of points per game. So with Brown getting so many touches, I would forecast that he'd be able to make up for it in this matchup, but I'm not going to bang the drum for him here. He's just a mid-range running back too. For Khalil Herbert, he fumbled on his first play as a Bengal. As the matchup was too close to Halloween, the dude just had butterfingers. I have always liked Khalil Herbert, and I think he's a competent back, but with him just arriving to the team recently, I don't expect him to have a big enough impact to want to start him, or for him to really cut into the workload too heavily for Chase Brown. J.K. Dobbins had his worst game as of recently up against the Titans, as his touchdown got taken away from him like his name was Liam Neeson by Hassan Haskins. Edwards returning from injury also didn't help, as the Gus Bus got 25% of the snaps and had 10 carries, but Dobbins is still the guy, so he should be able to be like a low-end running back too, because again, the Bengals defense fucking reeks to high heaven, especially since Dobbins has looked rock solid all season. Gus Edwards got 55 yards on his 10 carries and looked fine, but again, just like I said, 0.2 seconds ago with Dobbins, the team still wants Dobbins to be their lead back, and with Edwards having feet for hands, no need to play him when Dobbins is healthy. Final game here, dun 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 dun, Monday Night Football, the Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Mixon has now scored a touchdown in every single game in which he has been healthy this season. His only game without a touchdown was in week number 2, where he exited due to an injury that knocked him out for the next 3 games. In that run where he was healthy, he was a top 12 running back in 5 of 6 healthy games. You better believe Mixon is going to have no issue deep dicking the Cowboys defense like his name was Johnny Sins. I got him as a top 8 running back on the week. Now, Dare Ogunbowale, with the Texans operating most weeks, giving Mixon a workhorse level of snaps. He is one of few actual workhorse running backs in the NFL. Ogunbowale is just going to struggle to see more than a touch in a lot of games, so you're not going to want to play him. For the Cowboys, even with the Cowboys getting absolutely demolished, destroy, build, destroy, like that old fucking Cartoon Network show, which was one of my favorites as a kid, they got face-fucked by the Eagles, right? It wasn't even a good game remotely. Rico was still able to look decent. This week, he faces one of the best teams against running backs in fantasy football, so he's a prayer play at best, right? Your hope is that Cooper Rush plays better, and again, you're going to have to pray to the football gods that happens. So I like Rico's talent, so he could succeed here in a not-so-hot situation, but again, he's really only a start because there's a lot of teams on bye, so normally he would be a sit. Ezekiel Elliott is so ass that it's actually kind of shocking, right? He didn't look that bad in New England. Sure, he didn't look great like vintage Zeke back in the day, but whatever Jerry is putting in the food in Dallas has Zeke looking like he's a year away from being in the fucking retirement home, right? He looks so bad. That fumble on the goal line was genuinely hilarious as the Cowboys finally started to do something and that fat fuck Zeke coughed the ball up. No one should be playing Zeke in the year 2024. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. I love you guys more than you will ever know. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, check out all the videos on your screen. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog promo code Notorious to get your free pick, plus a first-time deposit bonus of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. I love you more than you'll ever know. Have a great one. As always, good boy.